These are rich hunting grounds, reshaped by the great New Madrid earthquake of 1811 and still called the Shakes. There, in a simple log cabin, the Crocketts make a new home. Elizabeth works the farm and raises the children while Davy hunts bears and goes politicking. In 1823, he is elected to the state legislature from this new district.
In the state legislature, Crockett becomes increasingly identified with the forces of Andrew Jackson and Jackson's protege, James K. Polk. As they expand their power and look to a run for the presidency, they're anxious to have men like Davy Crockett in the Congress of the United States. But they misjudge their man.
In 1827, Crockett runs for the U.S. Congress. His simple and direct campaign style fits perfectly in an era where political meetings begin with a barbecue and end with a dance. With the candidate expected to buy drinks all around, Elizabeth makes him a large buckskin hunting shirt with 2 great pockets.
In one, I would carry a great big twist of tobacco. The other, my bottle of liquor. For I knowed when I met a man and offered him a dram, he would throw out his quid of tobacco to take one. And after he had taken his horn, I would out with my twist and give him another chaw. And in this way, he would not be worse off than when I found him. And I would be sure to leave him in a first-rate good humor.
One of the most amazing things about Davy Crockett was the way he could express himself. This is the age of vernacular humor and storytelling, but he was a master storyteller and entertainer, both politically and personally.
Many are horrified by Crockett's electoral victory. The French traveler, Alexis de Tocqueville, sees it as one of the dire consequences of the age of the common man.
The inhabitants of the district of which Memphis is the capital sent to the House of Representatives in Congress an individual named David Crockett, who has no education, can read with difficulty, has no property, no fixed residence, but passes his life hunting, selling his game to live, and dwelling continuously in the woods. His competitor, a man of wealth and talent, failed.
The anti-Jackson press portray Crockett as a hopeless bumpkin and a loutish braggart. One widely circulated report relates Crockett's greeting to those he meets along the road.
I'm that same David Crockett, fresh from the backwoods. Half horse, half alligator, a little touch with snapping turtle. Can wade the Mississippi, leap the Ohio, ride up on a streak of lightning, and slip without a scratch down a honey locust. Can whip my weight in wildcats, hug a bear too close for comfort, and eat any man opposed to Jackson.
Crockett, stricken once again with malaria, does not present quite so formidable a figure when he reaches Washington. Secretary of State Henry Clay, Jackson's great rival in the West, receives a more sober and insightful view of the new congressman from his son-in-law, James Irwin.
Colonel Crockett is perhaps the most illiterate man that you ever met in Congress Hall. He is rough and uncouth, talks much and loudly, and is by far more in his proper place when hunting a bear in a canebrake than he will be in the Capitol. Yet he is independent and fearless and has a popularity at home that is unaccountable. He is the only man I know in Tennessee that could openly oppose General Jackson in his district and be elected to Congress.
Crockett was a sensation when he got to Washington City. At first, he was pretty sensitive to the way the newspapers criticized his lack of manners and his garbled speech. But the more the Eastern press criticized him, the more the Western folk loved him. And soon he became the symbol of the New West, the symbol of the common man, the symbol of the age of Jackson.
Crockett is at first delighted with Jackson's election to the presidency in 1828, but continues to drift from the president's camp over the question of squatters' rights in the Western country. He rightly perceives that Jackson and Polk are more concerned with looking after the interests of the slave-owning planters and big land speculators than the backwoods pioneers.
I have not left the principles which led me to support General Jackson. He has left them and me. And I will not surrender my independence to follow his new opinions taught by interested and selfish advisors, and which may again be remolded under the influence of passion and cunning.
Although increasingly unhappy with the Jacksonians, Crockett does not break with them until confronted with the forced removal of the Eastern Indian tribes from their traditional homelands to territory west of the Mississippi River.
His friends told Crockett that it was political suicide to oppose Jackson on Indian removal. All of his constituents in the Western country were in favor of it. All of the members of his own party, for the most part, were in favor of it. Certainly, most of the delegation from Tennessee was in favor of it. But he couldn't be. The memories of the Indian War burned inside him. His compassion for the dispossessed and the underprivileged held sway. And so he rose on the floor of Congress to boldly speak in defense of the Indians.
I will not vote for this bill.
Crockett's speech shocks his Western colleagues and delights the Eastern opponents of Indian removal. Here is the living symbol of the pioneer, the great hunter hero, the most famous Westerner in American save Andrew Jackson, speaking up for the Indians. The Eastern press reports his speech to the nation.
Mr. Crockett said that he felt it to be a duty to himself to explain the motives which governed him. He had always viewed the native Indian tribes of this country as a sovereign people. He believed they had been recognized as such from the very foundation of this government, and the United States were bound by treaty to protect them. It was their duty to do so. He knew the Indians were unwilling to go. If he should be the only member of that House who voted against the bill, and the only man in the United States who disapproved it, he would still vote against it. He had been charged with not representing his constituents. If the fact was so, the error is here, not here.
I cannot follow or go there.
His stand on Indian removal costs him his job, for the Jacksonians now work diligently to defeat him in the next election. Polk handpicks his opponent and floods Crockett's district with speakers and handbills. Jacksonians control the polls. Crockett loses by 586 votes.
I have not got a collar around my neck marked "My Dog" with the name of Andrew Jackson on it. Because I would not take the collar around my neck, I was hurled from their party.
For the next 2 years, he bides his time, hunting bears, mending his political fences back home, and watching the astonishing growth of his legend back east. Crockett's 1835 re-election campaign is bitter, for Jackson's forces devote all their resources to defeating him. He loses by 252 votes. Upon such slight numbers, the fate of men and legends reside. Crockett turns 49 the same August as his electoral defeat. Deeply embittered, he tells his constituents that they might all go to hell and he will go to Texas. He does just that, departing Memphis with 3 companions on November 2nd, 1835. Be always sure you're right, then go ahead, is his motto. And he reflects that self-assurance as he travels westward.